Hello, you lovely lot. Thanks for tuning in for the next part of my Lady Loki project. This is how far we got in part 1. If you haven't seen part 1, I will leave a link somewhere on the screen about now, so you can go check it out and see how we painted her head to look like this. And continuing on with her body, I have painted the whole thing with some Vallejo black surface primer, and now I've just got some Vallejo white, and I am doing some highlights, spraying like I did in part 1 at quite a drastic angle, as that arrow shows. So using a whole line of sight type thing where you can see, like under the shoulder blades, the paint hasn't gone there because of the angle that I'm spraying at. You can get a bit messy this, so be careful when you do this. And I haven't reduced the paint at all, it's just straight out the bowl. And like I say, you can use the direction of the spray to do all your highlighting for you. There are some bits that I fancy just making a bit brighter. You can see I'm doing that here. Making your triceps a bit brighter, and there we go, speed it up a bit. Otherwise this video would be 9 years long. Then your rib cage. I was toying with making those panels I just sprayed there quite transparent. I didn't in the end, they ended up quite green, but my original idea was to make them quite sheer. I was going to go very lightly with green over the top, but I changed my mind, as you do. Get the camera angle right, there we go. So now going in with some Vallejo magenta. I'm going to go over the white, basically. Wherever there is white, I now want it to be magenta. Again, spraying from quite a distance away, and using the old, is it zenithal highlighting method? Basically where you're spraying from a drastic angle and you're using line of sight to do the highlighting for you. And again, going in a couple of places just to add some more where needed. So that's the magenta. Then we're going in with some Createx Illustration Scarlet, which is just a bright red basically. You don't have to use this illustration paint. Any red paint that you have got will do. You don't have to use the exact same brand that I'm using here. And this red is going to go into the shadows. So anywhere that the black is still showing, we want it to be red basically. But of course, being black, it takes a little bit longer to achieve a decent amount of saturation. Not like over white. Over white, that magenta just goes pop straight away. But when you're painting over black, it takes a little bit longer to get the saturation. But there you go, just working it into all the shadow areas. Wish I could really paint that quick. Then I've gone off camera again, and there's a lovely shot of my kitchen roll. Little shadow in the cleavage and the old armpits. And there we go. Now for the flesh tones. So, Tim Core's Bloodline, Fair Blush. That is my base flesh tone. And some 4011 reducer. And if memory serves me correctly, I did a 50-50 reduction on this. Again, you don't have to use those paints. Whichever is your flesh tone of choice, but this would need to be your brightest flesh tone. And then we're just going over the magenta. So everything that's magenta now needs to be this bright flesh tone. And what the magenta does is provides a magenta base, basically, that will still show through the flesh tone. Gives you a more believable flesh tone, rather than if you just paint over white or black. Black is never really a good base colour for a flesh tone. It never looks very pretty, to be honest, in my limited experience. So that's all the magenta bits. Now painted with a bright flesh tone. Now again, Tim Core's Bloodline, Natural Lip, and this is my mid tone. It's my mid flesh tone, and this is going to go over the red. Or scarlet, whichever you prefer. You could always go in here with your darkest tone, but I find that it makes it too dark. So I like to use my mid-tone for the shadows, and then in a minute you'll see that I get my dark tone and I just add some darker areas where needed. Again, I've reduced this 50-50 with the 4011 reducer as well. Speed things up a bit. Hit the old turbo button so we're not here forever and ever, I'm in. This is where we need some nice, like, ambient background music in it. I've tried to do that in the past. Even the tracks you buy, you actually buy a license to use a music track in a video, and it's good for a little while, and then you get copyright strikes. It's like the license only lasts for a little while, so just hum to yourself or something. So there's our mid-tone. See, it's all starting to take shape now. So we've got our light flesh tone and our mid-flesh tone. And that's covered the magenta and the scarlet. Now we've got Tim Core's Bloodline, Deep Espresso, and this is my darkest flesh colour. Again, I'm reducing this 50-50, and less is more with this one. You don't want to use this too much. Because it's so reduced, it takes a few passes to be able to see it. But just going into the parts that are the darkest on her flesh. Getting it into all those little folds on her costume. Hit the old turbo button again, just to speed things up a bit. So you can still see what I'm doing when I speed it up like this. If I showed you it in real time, it would just take way too long. So there we go. That's a dark tone. See what I mean? If you go a bit too heavy with that one, you can easily really shift her skin tone. And I wanted her to have quite pale, pasty skin, so I went nice and careful with that espresso there. Next up, illustration yellow. I decided that her flesh was a bit too purple. It was just a little bit too on the purple side. So if you can see on the colour wheel on the back wall there, opposite purple is yellow. So I carefully dusted over some yellow to just calm down that purple, make it look a bit more warmer. Shifted it from the cool purples to the more warmer oranges, and then I've got the original light flesh tone that we started with, and I'm just going back in, just bringing back in some of those highlights that have got lost while we've done all the other colours. So like where her ribs are. See, that would be her rib cage there. Because she's got her arm up in the air, you would see her rib protruding a bit, so that's why I've done that bit there. It is sculpted into the figure, but you can't see it all that well, so paint helps you pick out details quite nicely. Then on the shoulders, because they're going to be getting tons of light on them. And because her left arm there is going behind her, that shoulder, collarbone and upper chest area there is going to be catching loads of light. So that's why I've made that quite bright, that bit. And the bicep. And the tricep. And then I went off camera again, because I'm really good at that. It's really hard to hold it up and keep it on camera and watch what you're painting. There you go, I've noticed. So yeah, just lightening up that shoulder. A little bit on the back, not too much. There we go. Oh, a little bit more. A little bit on this side. Not too much though, because she's got like this big fur collar that goes all around here, so this bit won't be too bright, but I'm just bringing back some of those highlights that got lost. There we go. And then just going to pop the head on to make sure that the flesh tones on the body match the flesh tones on the face. Because that would be awkward if they didn't match. It's looking good. I'm happy with that. Yeah, okay. It looks good. Let's get on. Take the head back off before it falls off and I break it. So back to the old black surface primer. And I broke out the hairy brush for this bit, but it didn't quite work. I was going to try and be clever and not mask off anything, because I hate masking. It's so dull and boring. It's a total time vampire and I hate it. So try the old hairy brush just to put her costume back to black, because I'm going to be painting a metallic over this, and the flesh tone overspray that's gone over it will affect the metallic look, so I want it to be a flat black again.
Some time later.
So here we go. That's all the that's all of her outfit painted just black again. And there you can really see the bits on a rib cage that I was going to just leave green. So now we've got Vallejo metallic green. And I start trying to do it with a hairy brush, but you can really see the brush strokes. I really didn't like the finish at all on that. So I eventually bite the bullet and decide the only way to get a nice smooth finish on this would be to spray it with the airbrush. See, look how horrible that looks. So I've got some blue tack, some cheap old blue tack, and I'm using that to mask off the flesh tones that we've sprayed. Have I mentioned I hate masking? It takes forever. I'm just using a little sculpting tool just to press it into those gaps there to make sure those flesh tones are sealed off, because we don't want any of the metallic paint getting onto the flesh. So making sure it gets into all the little nooks and crannies. Exciting this, isn't it? I told you. And then getting some paper roll, kitchen towel, and just pushing it into that blue tack just to stick it on. And there you go, that's the front breastplate sort of thing masked off. Then putting that metallic green into the airbrush and spraying it down, and you can see you get such a nicer finish than you did with the hairy brush. Here we go, beautiful. Next up, this is a solvent paint, this one, Candy Moss Green by Specialist Paints. There you go, look, all the warnings on the side. This is a stinky solvent paint. You can't see it, but off camera I've got a little extractor fan going just to suck out the fumes, but because it's a solvent candy, it's a true transparent. I eventually decided it needs to be a bit darker, but you're kind of seeing my experimentation here. You can see it just darkening down on that bottom half there. The reason I thought about the solvent, like I say, it's a true transparent, so all the highlights, the reflective properties of the metallic paint would still work. If you went and used just a regular acrylic paint, it would cover that reflection eventually. You get away with a bit, but eventually it would dull down that reflection. So you want a true transparent, be it a candy or an ink, something like that. So there's that. So I've left some highlighted areas that I haven't sprayed over, and then just basically sprayed into the shadow areas. Demask it. Carefully taking off all that blue tack. And then I decide that it's still too bright. That's the other thing I don't like about masking. You can't see the rest of the model. So, like there, it wasn't until I unmasked everything and looked at it, and I thought, you know what, it's still too bright, it needs to be darker. So then I had to mask it all up again. This is where I was going to do a very light transparent green over those rib sections to create like a sheer fabric effect, so the flesh tones would still show through, but it would have a green tint to it, so it would have the effect of being a sheer fabric. Pushing all the paper towel into that blue tack again. So there we go, it's all masked off again. This time I have got Vallejo Candy Racing Green. This is a much darker green. Again, it's a candy, but this time it's water based. There's none of those stinky solvents. So there you go, see, you get the kind of gist on the sheer fabric. I decided against it, and I went heavier with the green in the end. But if you want to do a sheer fabric effect, then paint your flesh tones first, and then whichever colour is going over the top, if it's a blue sheer fabric or a red or whatever, just get a nice candy or an ink and go lightly over the top, and the flesh tone will still show through and give you the effect of a sheer fabric. So there's that. I'm pretty happy with that. Pop the head on again just to have a look, see what it looks like. Looking good. So what we got next? Wicked Detail Smoke Black. I like this paint a lot. It's not a full-on black. It's a smoke black, like it says on the bottle. It's great for doing shadows and just darkening down some areas without using a full-on black, which is just too overpowering. So what I've done is I've really watered it down. I mean, I've used like 1 part paint to 5 parts water. That's why you can see those bubbles. This is like really watered down, almost like a glaze. Because I've watered it down so much, you see it's just sitting in the crevices. Just going into all those little nooks and crannies and just sitting there and like adding depth and a bit of grime and shadow into the darker areas. And when you get bubbles like that, you see me like quickly wave over my heat gun and that just pops those bubbles straight away. And if you put down a little bit too much, you can just dab it with a tissue. And that just adds some definition to all those different scales. So it adds just a little bit of the... Oh yeah, look. See where I haven't masked off properly? She's got a bit of green on her arm, so we have to sort that out later. But yeah, that black has just... or smoke black has just added a bit of definition into all those individual scales without losing the reflective qualities of the metallic paint. So now we've got Vallejo dark green. This isn't a candy or anything, it's just a dark green paint. And this I'm going to use for the leather parts of her costume. So it's just going to be a dark green leather sort of thing. So those side panels there I thought would be leather. And then it would carry on down her costume, down her legs sort of thing. So everything flows. Just checking it out, making sure I like how that looks. Right, now to paint her arms. So I've masked everything off. Pretty easy little masking job, that one. Wish they were all that simple. We got that dark green again that I'm using for the leather parts. I'm just spraying the whole of her big long glove in that green. Her fingers are showing, poking out of it, but we'll deal with that later. So now I've got Vallejo basic green, which is a brighter green. Not too bright, but it's brighter than the dark green. And I'm just adding some highlights. You could do this with dry brushing if you haven't got an airbrush, but it's quicker with an airbrush, so I'm just doing it that way. If your airbrush control is good, you'll be able to freehand details like that. So now I've got illustration white. Why did I get illustration white out? Oh, that's right, yeah, to do the glowing effect. See, she's got some like magic wispy bits going on her hand. So I was going to do a fake glow, basically. I did toy with the idea of printing the wispy smoky bits in transparent resin and putting an LED in her hand, but I didn't think it would have had the desired effect, so I decided to use paint to do the glow. So this is just me adding white to the glowing areas, and then I can go over that white with a really bright green, but because it's got the white undercoat, so to speak, it will really show up, rather than doing the bright green straight over the dark green, and it wouldn't show up as well. The white just helps it pop. Just thinking about where all the highlights would be. If those wispy bits were glowing, which parts of her hands, like the knuckles, the visible like tendons on the top of your hand, they would all catch a bit of the light. Obviously the wispy bits need to be the brightest green possible, so giving them a white base coat while I'm at it. Go off camera again. There we go. Speed up a bit. You get the gist. I've taken, I didn't glue them on straight away, so I could remove one of the wispy bits so that I could get to the inside of her hand. See, it's not on there. Now I have Liquitex ink, lime green. The only reason I'm using Liquitex ink here is because it is, again, a true transparent, and it's the brightest green I've got. You can see it's really picking up those white highlights and just turning them bright limey green. Just like that. And there's a little wispy bit. Trying to figure out how to get it on without scratching the paint off, because there's no varnish or anything on this yet, so if you're not careful you could scratch the paint off with something this is quite a tight little fit over her fingers, so you have to be careful with stuff like this. Next up, Tim Gore's Bloodline Natural Lip. This is the fingers. So rather than mess about with all the magentas and the reds and all that lot, it's just her fingers that are sticking out of the glove. So we don't need to worry too much about shading and that lot on here. So I've just jumped in straight away with my mid-tone flesh colour. Is it my mid-tone flesh colour or is it my lightest? We'll soon find out. We'll see what my next colour is. Just painting the fingers again, being careful not to get too much overspray around. This is where your airbrush control comes in handy. If you're not careful, you could cover all that green glove in overspray. So your airbrush control comes into play here. So there's the fingers painted fleshy. Next up, now more lime green ink. Oh yep, because now we've turned the fingers fleshy, we've now got to do the glow from the magic wispy bit on the flesh tones. Another cracking camera angle there, mate. Nice one. Not focused. Beautiful camera work. There you go. See, I've added the glow to the underside on the flesh tone there. And just figuring out where the wispy bits wrap around the finger, so where there would be more glowing on like the ring finger and the middle finger. Going off camera again. I need like a camera that straps to my glasses. That would be handy. Then everything I look at, you look at. I did look into it, but they seem to be an absolute fortune for one that would do like HD. Absolute fortune. And I'm just a poor starving artist. I can't afford stuff like that. I'll just have to remember to keep it on camera as much as possible. So still going through adding that lime green to the flesh tones for the glowy bits. There you go, you can really see on the underneath there now. And yep, top of the knuckles as well. Zoom in so you can see what I've done, if it focuses. Rather than focusing on my 3D printer's power supply. And then yeah, just very carefully working the wispy bit back on without scratching the paint off or breaking the wispy bit. It was a quite a fragile little bit, that. There we go. One glowing hand. So demask everything. Pop the head back on. See what we're looking like. Make sure we're happy with how things are progressing. Pretty happy with that. And we've now reached the 45-minute mark on this video, so I think we'll leave it there. That's basically our upper torso done. So next up we'll do her legs, I'll get that edited up as quick as I can for you. In the meantime, please like, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell icon to be notified whenever I update and upload a new video. Thanks for watching.